Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Cbrev. Welcome to another MLB The Show 20 video. This one's going to be a little bit different type of video for me. I really wanted to have kind of a roundtable discussion with you guys on how we're evaluating pitcher cards in MLB The Show 20 Diamond Dynasty, what's wrong with what we're looking at, how it can be improved, and I want to hear input from you guys on it as well. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe for more MLB The Show 20 content. Drop a like on the video. Helps me out a ton. So this video idea really stemmed from streaming a lot recently, people bringing up their pitcher stats, asking me my opinions on pitchers, and what really was the catalyst was someone came in my stream the other night and they said both my Kluber and Hershiser ERAs are in the 5s. What's wrong with my Kluber and Hershiser? What am I doing wrong? And in my opinion, that person isn't doing anything wrong. I just think our opinions on stats in this game are off and how we look at them. The core issue, especially, I'm talking mostly about ERA, obviously. The core issue is that we're using benchmarks from real life in a game that does not directly emulate real life, and especially with lineups that don't directly emulate real life. So I'll just say that I think ERA is a horrible metric to look at a pitcher with in this game. I don't even look at my pitchers' ERAs. I'll give you some benchmarks of my own for my ERAs because I know some of you guys might want to look at them, but me personally, I don't care about my pitcher's ERA. I think it's a bad stat for several reasons. ERA doesn't work like it does in real life in this game. So our classic benchmarks of a 3 ERA being good, a 4 ERA being average, stuff like that, everything in this game is skewed higher than that because of how the game works, right? It's much easier to hit in the game than it is in real life. On top of the fact we're playing an ultimate team game mode where at this point in the year 1 through 8 in the lineup is pretty much just a 99 overall hitter, which is not anywhere remotely close to how it works in real life. So it's much harder to pitch on this game because any given batter can go deep on you. Any given inning can blow up because every single hitter you pitch to is a 99 overall card or similar power level to a 99 overall card. So I think it's important to understand that ERA is not a good metric, and if you're going to look at it, you have to be conscious of the fact that it skews very, very high on this game, and that's just kind of how the game mechanics work year over year. Like I said, I'll give you some benchmarks to look for in ERA towards the end of this video. Another reason ERA doesn't really work the same on this game as it does in real life is sample size issues. Typically in a season, a pitcher will get 30 to 35 starts. A good benchmark for a solid put in work season is 200 innings in real life, and that's kind of where these benchmarks come from. You get a super large sample size from that many starts. For most people on this game, 30 to 35 starts and 200 innings is not anywhere close to what they're going to accumulate with the cards they're trying to evaluate. I'm talking about cards that are on the margins, not like Kluber. I'm sure a ton of you have 200 innings logged with Kluber because we know he's good, right? I'm talking about the new cards that come out. With how often content is released, it's just unrealistic to ever expect a reasonable sample size with a pitcher, and so there's sample size issues with your ERA numbers there as well. If you think about 200 innings with the way pitcher energy is kind of nerfed now, where you can really only throw a guy every 5 innings. If you average 6 innings a start and you can only throw a guy every 5 games, it's literally going to take you like pretty much the length of a full season, like 160, 170 games to throw 200 innings with a card. And 160, 170 games in ranked is like a lot of people's entire year. Like, that's how many games they play the whole year. So most of the time you're not going to be able to reach sample sizes that are able to be benchmarked with real life innings, if that makes sense. The last reason I don't really think ERA is a good metric on this game in particular is because, and this may be a little bit of a controversial take, but there are so many variables with skill level game to game in this particular game mode that doesn't exist in real life. Obviously, we know Mike Trout is better than Lewis Brinson. Obviously, we know Jacob deGrom is better than your average 5th starter in the MLB. But overall, in real life, people that are in the MLB are top tier baseball athletes in the country and debatably the world. Like, they are literally some of the best baseball players alive. All of the best baseball players in the country alive. So there's not really like too low of a floor in the MLB, if that makes sense, because if it was in the MLB and they went below the floor or the benchmark, they would just get demoted to the minors, right? It doesn't really work that way on this game. Some of you are playing rookie ball at 200 rating. I'm just being honest. Some of you are in AA at 500 rating. That's kind of just how it works. I'm not dogging on anyone's rating. I just think it's important to understand when we talk about a pitcher dominating with a 2 ERA that we understand the context by which that pitcher has a 2 ERA. And this is both with you as the pitcher and you as the batter, is what I'm talking about with skill levels. So as with you as the pitcher, are you sequencing correctly? Does the pitcher throw pitches that you kind of click with and are able to sequence well? Are you consciously aware of what you're portraying information-wise as a pitcher and how to play off of that? Are you consciously aware of your opponent's swing timings and how to play off of that? All those things go into being a good pitcher on this game, and if you are doing that with a card that maybe isn't good but you're playing bad hitters, that could work. If you're not doing that with a good card, you could have a high ERA and you think it's the card's fault. I'm trying not to be mean, but this is literally how it works, and it's on the other end of the coin too. What kind of hitter are you pitching to? Are you throwing Kluber at pitching Rebel, and because Rebel scored 10 runs in 6 innings, all of a sudden Kluber sucks? Or are you throwing Silver Tyler Glass now at Johnny down the street, who got his parents to buy him MLB The Show 20 for $30, and he's striking out 22 times in a 9-inning game? So the variables involved with skill are so insane, the dynamics are so unpredictable game to game, and I really think that's a reason why we see drastically different ERAs and drastically different performances from the same card from different people. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to talk about this in a way that we can discuss. I'm not trying to take shots at anyone. I just think ERA is a bad metric, and overall, evaluating starting pitcher cards, especially new ones that come out, is so subjective and anecdotal that my general advice is to just try the card yourself. If you want to try a new pitcher, give him 10 starts, give him 5 to 10 starts, feel him out for yourself, because more than likely whoever you ask if a pitcher's good or not, or whoever you talk to if a pitcher's good or not, is not going to have 5 to 10 starts worth of experience under their belt with that card. Unless it's a super popular card, because content just comes out so quick this year. So that's my advice. Try them yourself. If you have a pitcher that you're dominating with that works for you, definitely stick with him. If you watch my tier list video and you tried Cole Hamels for 5 starts and he got blown up in all 5 starts, get rid of Hamels. Maybe he's not the right pitcher for you. So as objective and logical as I always try to be, I really think with pitcher cards in this game, the best move is to just be subjective and try them yourself, as sad as that sounds. So second half of this video, I'm going to talk about really what I look for, how I've been evaluating pitcher cards if ERA is kind of off the table. None of this is ideal. That's why I want to hear your opinions, what you guys maybe look for besides ERA. But here we go. Here's where I start. So before we even get into the game, obviously pitch repertoire is a big deal. The best pitches in the game in order are sinker, cutter, changeup, slurve, and ideally you would want a 5th pitch that kind of tunnels with sinker cutter, like a 4-seam. Sound familiar? Look at the card we're looking at. So that's kind of what I look like. If a pitcher has 4 of the 4 best pitches in the game, obviously he's probably going to be pretty good. The 2 that have that come to mind right now are Kluber and Mize, 99 Mize. Obviously Mize has a splitter instead of a changeup, but same thing. And if they have 3 out of the 4, they're probably very good. I'm talking about Hershiser, I'm talking about Paxton, I'm talking about Maddox. So assuming the pitches have decent amount of break and velocity, that's really where you want to start, is with pitch repertoire. The meta pitches, we know the meta pitches from what we struggle to hit with, so this could change year to year, but this year definitely sinker cutter, changeup, slurve is the move, and that's where you should be looking to kind of generate whether cards are good. And some of my favorite pitcher cards in the game, like Oral, Maddox that just came out, I'm sure I'm gonna love. Kerry Wood doesn't have a sinker, but he has the other 3. It's really a good benchmark to kind of be a good starting point for whether a card is good or not. Obviously outliers are good too. They always help, although outliers are probably going to be more common with relievers than starters as we move on through the year. But yeah, pitch repertoire, pretty good. Next up, and this is where we start to kind of take a look at stats, and this is just my opinion, and this is not ideal, like I said, at all. This is just my best guesses from looking at the cards that I've had the most success with to make this video. So, starting off is strikeouts per 9, K per 9. In my experience, some of the best pitchers I've used this year have a K per 9 of 9, 8 or higher, I'll say. Usually it's 9 or higher with the guys that I really dominate with. So you can see Corey Kluber here, almost a 10 K per 9. Sorry, I was sitting on Kluber for the first half of this video. Now we can kind of show you stuff. Oral Hershiser, 10 K per 9. Kerry Wood, I like a lot. Almost 11 K per 9. So K per 9 is not ideal, but it is I've found to be a really good metric as to whether a pitcher is usable to good to great. Obviously strikeouts are amazing on this game. A strikeout is the best kind of out you can have as a pitcher because there's a 0% chance that a strikeout will be a hit. Well, not 0 if it's a pass ball, but you guys know what I mean. Pretty much a guaranteed out. It's kind of like hitting a home run as a batter, right? Guaranteed run. A strikeout's a guaranteed out. There are exceptions to this. My Hal Newhouser has a 12 K per 9. I don't think Hal Newhouser is the greatest card in the game right now, but he does miss bats a lot. So it's a good starting point, I suppose. K per 9, 8+, I think is good. Another thing I try to look for is, in general, if the pitcher can hit their spots well. And the best way I've found to kind of look at this stat-wise in game is with home runs per 9. So let's go back and look at Kluber. I actually look at innings per home runs instead of home runs per 9 because I'd like to look at it at a per inning basis instead of a 9-inning basis. Once again, going back to the sample size issue, I'd rather look at it per inning. But in general, if you have a home run per 9 under 3, or if you have an inning per home run ratio of more than 3, I think that's a good card. And some of the best cards I've used this year have put up this metric. So you can see Kluber's giving up 42 home runs in 162 innings. That's about 4 innings per home run. Very good. We go back to Oral. He's thrown 131 innings, giving up 33 home runs. That's once again about a 4 inning per home run ratio. Let's look at someone who I don't think is as good. Hal Newhouser, 142 innings pitched, 58 home runs. That is less than 3 innings per home run. I hope you guys are following what I'm saying. Someone else that I thought was completely terrible on this game, 93 Bob Feller, 147 innings, 62 home runs. That's like less than 2.5 innings per home run. So I always talk about the magnet on my stream. I think there's an invisible magnet when your control ratings screw you with a guy with poor control, or even sometimes with a guy with good control, where you'll get input with analog pitching and the ball will still end up middle somehow. There's a magnet that draws it to the middle of the plate. We call it magnet on stream. So how magnet proof is the pitcher card? I think home runs per 9 or innings per home run is a really good metric to look at that. I'll show you another pitcher that I thought is pretty good. Let's see if I have a sample size big enough on this account. Maybe like Oswalt. I thought Oswalt was okay. 133 innings, 48 home runs. So that's little under 3 innings per home run. So yeah, that's another metric you can look at. Someone on my stream mentioned whip. I think whip is good. I think in general, with a large enough sample size, whip is a good metric of how well you're pitching. But there is a little bit of a stylistic bias with whip, depending on the type of pitcher that you are. Because if you're okay with walking people, your whip is going to be skewed higher, if that makes sense. If you're a stylistic pitcher that throws a lot of balls and you try to get people to chase all game, you're going to get a lot more walks than someone like me who just tries to avoid walks at all costs. You can see 17 walks in 162 innings. I really hate walking people, so I'm probably going to lay it in there 3-1. So the reason whip skews higher for people that throw a lot of balls is because you're more likely to give up, or you're more likely to walk multiple people in an inning throwing balls than you are to give up hits coming in 3-1 in an inning, at least in my opinion. So whip's okay to look at. Some of my best pitchers have low whips, you can see from the guys I keep showing. Hal's whip is a little higher, so that's a decent metric, but there is stylistic bias there that needs to be addressed. So those are the metrics that I look at. Now let's talk about, if I had to evaluate ERA, how I would look at it and what my experience has been with ERA. Once again, you need a super large sample size for these benchmarks to be relevant, but these are the best benchmarks that I have found. So this is just my opinion, but I think it needs to be said in the video. So benchmarks for starting pitchers. I think if your starting pitcher has a 4 ERA or lower, that is a top tier, one of the best pitchers in the game type card. You can see my Kluber has 3.67, my Hershiser's at 3.98, both below 4. I think these cards are insane. Some of the best pitchers in the game. I'll show you Kerry Wood as well, who I forgot to show you with home runs per inning, but you can see his is right around 4 as well. I think a 4 ERA for a starting pitcher is dominant, in my opinion. An ERA between 4 and 5, I think, is a good pitcher. Let's see if I have someone. I think Spencer Howard, very small sample size on this account. But yeah, Spencer Howard, I think, is a good pitcher. 4.7 ERA for me. I think if your ERA is between 5 and 6, that you're an average pitcher. So let's go look at Oswalt, who got me a 5.6 ERA during the time I prestiged him. I thought Oswalt was a pretty average pitcher. So again, these are just my opinions, but I'm trying to give you some benchmarks that maybe help with the skewness of this game and in my experience. So, and then anything above a 6 for a starting pitcher, I think you're going from average to the territory of bad. I showed you my Hal Newhouser has a 6 ERA. A lot of people would look at his 6 ERA and think a card is absolutely horrendous. I don't think Hal Newhouser is absolutely horrendous as much as I meme about him on stream, but he's not good in my opinion. And I think the 6 ERA in 142 innings really shows that. So just to recap for starters, an ERA below 4 with a sample size of like 100 innings or more, I think is a dominant pitcher. An ERA 4 to 5 is a good pitcher. An ERA 5 to 6 is an average pitcher. And an ERA 6+, you're getting into the territory of bad. You can check out John Smoltz. Hate this card. Sample size, obviously only 40 innings, but yeah. So to wrap up the video, let's talk about relievers. What is there to say about relievers? In my opinion, I think it's almost impossible to evaluate relievers at all with statistics because of the sample size issues and the way that pitcher energy works on this game. Most of the time, you're lucky to get 1 to 2 innings out of a reliever every other game. And so in order to get like a reasonable sample size with a reliever, like real life would be something like 50 to 80 innings. That would take you literally like probably the same length as I talked about earlier, like 170 ranked seasons games. So relievers are going to be rotated out way too much to get that much of a sample size. I will show you original Mariano Rivera, since I did prestige him and he's got a decent sample size. And this was events, so it's a little skewed, but you can see 56 innings, 2.88 ERA is completely insanely good card, especially for the benchmarks that I'm going to give you guys. So once again, these are just my opinion on benchmarks and my experience with these cards. As far as relievers, it's kind of like real life, how reliever cards are most generally always going to be worse than starters. And so it's really hard to evaluate them with statistics, with their sample size and all that stuff. So really it's a feel thing, who works for you. But here are my benchmarks for relievers. If your ERA is below 4.5 as a reliever, I think that's a dominant shutdown closer. If you think about what 4.5 ERA is, it's one earned run given up every 2 innings. If I bring a guy out of the bullpen, especially with the goons that I'm constantly playing, once again, going back to skill level, your experience may be different, but with the goons that I'm playing all the time, if I put a reliever in and he gives up 1 earned in 2 innings, that's an amazing outing for me. And if you look at someone like Rob Dibble, who I think is debatably the best reliever in the game right now, 4.38 ERA is right there. Just 1 run every 2 innings. That's it's really shut down, in my opinion. And I would not evaluate the home runs per inning thing with relievers because a lot of the runs I give up with relievers are home runs. So just to bring up sample size again, you can see he's only thrown 12 innings. But if you think about that, that's 12 games where I brought in Rob Dibble in a situation where I felt like I needed a shutdown inning. So that's 12 high leverage ranked seasons games. You just can't use inning pitch and ERA really as metrics for relievers, especially. And 7 saves. People might look at 7 saves and say that's a very small sample size. I disagree. This man has been responsible for giving me 7 wins in ranked seasons. 7 wins if you start at 700 and stop when you hit World Series. For some people, 7 wins is half of a month of ranked seasons. Like if you go 14-5 and make World Series, something like that. So relievers have the smallest sample size. I'm sure you guys are getting the point, but these are just the benchmarks I'm living with. So yeah, below 4.5 ERA for a reliever is insane shutdown reliever. You can see my Chapman here, 3.38, and obviously I showed you Mo had like a 3 ERA, which is a completely absurdly low ERA for a reliever. I cannot stress how good that ERA is, and it's important to know that so that you get away from our benchmarks from real life. What's a good reliever? I would say between 4.5 ERA and 6 ERA. If your reliever has 6 ERA, I still think it's a good reliever. I really do. 6 ERA is 2 earned runs in 3 innings. Once again, if I put in a guy and he averages giving up 2 earned runs in 3 innings out of the bullpen, I am insanely happy with his performance on that. And some of the guys that have been okay for me, or good, you could say, like John Franco. I think John Franco is a good card. Is he a top tier reliever? Probably not, but he's good. 5.19 ERA for a reliever is not in any way bad. It's a good ERA, I promise. Another guy, Zach Britton, 4.7, borderline shutdown for me. So I'm trying to tell you guys, most people would agree, Raleigh is good. 5.53 ERA is in the good category. Hinkie also. There's a reason all these guys are in my bullpen right now, 4.82. So once again, you try to stay away from ERA as a metric, but I'm just giving you guys benchmarks. Maybe take a look at a reliever that I think is bad. Let's see who's gotten blown up for me a bit. Honestly, maybe Rodney. I didn't mean to put him in. Whoops. Hold on, chat. Not on this account. Rodney's thrown 1 inning on this account. Rodney would be someone that I would think would be below good. Maybe like an average reliever. I think he's got like an 8 ERA. 8 to 9 ERA is average reliever in this game, in my opinion. And like above a 9 ERA is probably when you're getting into the territory of bad. So that's my pitcher evaluation. I'm going to wrap the video up. Let me know what you guys think. Sorry, it was just me talking in the menus, but I really wanted to dive in and show you guys the stats and maybe try to change our mindset, change our approach to how we're looking at pitcher cards in the game this year. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Please comment down below, give me your input. I love you guys so much. Thank you for all the support and growth this year. It really means the world to me. You guys are the best. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.